Morning and happy Friday. It's Facebook Live for Friday, and we're excited to talk to the folks from the Michigan Department of Transportation about a variety of things that are happening. The biggest question, of course, is to talk to Diane Cross and ask her what's going on with I-696 and what the timetable is. But we also have Bill Urban here, who's the project engineer for the I-75 project that's downriver, starts at Springwells and heads down to the Telegraph Connector. A number of new things happening along that stretch of I-75, so we'll bring him in as well. But I want to say hello to Diane Cross. It's so nice to have you here.
Always a pleasure.
What a pleasure to have you here. You have been so kind to answer our phone calls, to answer the cries from the wilderness, so to speak, to say, okay, Diane, what's going on here on I-696? You've had a public meeting, about what's happening along 696. You've gotten the calls from us, and we're just going crazy. Why don't we have a date? What's going on here, and what's your insight?
Okay, what is going on is, this is such a large project, it's about $110 million. We have a contractor do that, so MDOT itself is not doing the construction. We did the design, and then we put the project out for bid. Right now we're waiting for approval on the bids that were submitted, and then once contracts in Lansing gets done with it, and we know that everything this company has said it can do, the time frame, the money, all of that stuff works out, then it will be awarded. Then whomever it's awarded, we give it to Dennis. Dennis picks your company, your manpower, workforce, equipment, all of that. Your schedule determines when we do the closure.
Do you think there's one Lansing is focusing on? Do you have any insight into that, or is there one that says, hey, let's get started now, versus one let's wait for a little while longer?
Well, until it's awarded, wouldn't be able to talk about that type of thing. But again, that company will run the project, so it'll determine. But it would not be any earlier than late April. In the next couple weeks, people will start to see along the service drive in Macomb between 94. Service drive in this area, westbound only, you're going to start to see crews in the next couple weeks put up traffic signals, which are going to help flow traffic better when all the drivers who use westbound service drive. And then we'll be putting signs in different areas around where to warn drivers that westbound is closed. So that'll be starting, and the signs will be covered. And then once we know the closure date, then we'll go around and open up all those signs.
That closure lasts the entire period too, doesn't it? When
Correct.
You close West 696 between 94 and 75, we understand that goes through until the project is fully completed in basically November is what we heard.
Correct. I should have written it in red. So red, westbound is the only direction that's closing.
Right.
Eastbound will always be open. Now, the project is going to be done in 2 stages. The first one will, once it starts, go till sometime in July. And when July, so until July, eastbound you can always go, no matter what. Sometime in July, we will be done rebuilding the westbound, but we're not opening westbound. We're just going to shift the eastbound traffic onto that new side. And when we do that, you're only going to have 3 places where you can exit. So it'll be, you can exit at DeQuinder, you can exit at Mound, and at Groesbeck. So every other exit ramp will be closed and every other one will be open.
That one Mound one, we got a little bit of a concern about,
Yeah,
because we talked to Mark Hackle on Wednesday and said, Mark, we're going to dump people out here. That's the only exit off of, or one of 3, off of eastbound I-696 when it's on the new westbound lanes. We're dumping this traffic out onto a road that's in really, really bad shape. Apparently there's a little bit of a plan going on here that they hope will improve that roadway, that stretch of Mound Road between 696 and about 14 mile road, to try to at least do a really good patching job so it's smooth for folks to use that road, because right now it's a mess.
It is. MDOT gets more complaints about that than any of our roads, which MDOT roads are the I, M, and US roads. So I-696, M10, US 24, those are MDOT roads. Mound belongs to the county. I did read that article this morning that Mark Hackle is looking for creative financing for that. I don't know how that's going to work, but there's so many businesses in that area. We have to let traffic be able to get off there. Now, once we switch traffic over though, and again, this is sometime after July, you can still go eastbound, but we're going to have moved you onto the new concrete. There's not going to be any entrance ramps. So after July, just the 3 exits. Right. So if you don't get on at 75, you're not going to be able to get on. Right. You'll be able to get off at the 3 spots, but you won't be able to get back on.
Okay. Remember to share this video with your friends and some of the folks in the business, a lot of folks are going to be affected by this. If you have any questions, let us know. I'm watching here to see if there are any questions. Jim Biddle says, why can't they do half the distance and the other half when finished, at least have half of it available for drivers? Interesting question. Can you do that, though?
We get that a lot,
Thanks, Jim.
and I've been told of the safety thing, and Bill might be able to address that a little bit more, that it would cost so much more money and take so much more time, which means we would have things closed for 2 years. But we also can't do that because starting next year, late this year into next year, this interchange, 75, is going to be worked on too. So how do we affect eastbound, paralyze it, and then northbound, paralyze it? We just couldn't do that. So as much as it's a horrible inconvenience to the tens of thousands of drivers who want to use westbound, we couldn't do hundreds of thousands of drivers. So it is unfortunate, but the cost of having to move those median barriers, plus it would not be very safe, because if you've only got 2 lanes available, 2 east, 2 west, a tiny shoulder, what if there's an emergency?
Sure.
What if your daughter's trapped in a car, or there's a fire, or anything like that? It's not safe for the workers either.
Well, some of the things that you've mentioned over the years is so it helps put things in perspective, is that you're also a driver. You're also a family member. Bill is. Everybody drives these roads. So you don't necessarily want this to happen, but it has to happen. Shill for
No. The idea, though, that my kids both live
are.
off of 696, and so I, as a mother, it terrifies me sometimes, especially we were having all the problems with the concrete coming up, which we did that emergency patch job, spending millions of dollars knowing we're going to have to come in and rip that out, but we had to for safety. So no matter how inconvenient it is to that driver or anybody else, we're always going to pick safety first.
Right. Steve, Chris Renwick is watching. Thank you, Chris, very much. A lot of other folks are watching as well. Ray Kajewski, thank you so much. Good to know that you're watching as well. Somebody is also saying here, Lynette Veith Roofley, she's asking why don't you use the last contractor they had on I-696 and I-94? They did a really good job. Any thoughts on that? Is that contractor?
As part of a state,
you know?
I don't know, but as part of the state requirements is we have to take the low bid, so everybody has a fair shot.
Gotcha.
And therefore, once we put out what it is we need, any company is allowed to come back and make a bid on it.
Now we hear low bid. Now that's kind of makes everybody go, oh my goodness gracious, low bidder. That's necessary because it's required by the government.
It
right,
is
to
a law. I have to admit, I don't know the details behind it. I know it's not that old.
It doesn't
I don't
mean
know,
low
10, 20
quality,
years.
though. I'm assuming, right?
I would not.
Bill
None of us
can
would
jump
want
in
that.
on
None
this.
of us
Bill,
would
you want
want
to
that.
step in? Bill Urban is the project engineer for I-75. We'll be talking to him as well, but. That's a good question for you. Low bid doesn't necessarily mean low quality.
No, in fact, we have a whole state workforce that inspects, and we have the contract specification. We make sure the job is done right. So.
Okay, very good. Stay right where you are, Bill. But we're going to go back to talking about 696. And if you have anything you want to add in here, you're a project engineer. You understand this as well as Diane, and even beyond that, and from an engineering standpoint.
A lot more than Diane.
Well, you guys work great together. All the folks, Alan Ostrowski on this project, he's been a great person to talk to. He was at that meeting on Wednesday.
Yes,
I
he was.
heard our Stephanie Davis talk to him. Did a great, always does a great interview with him. Great, well-spoken young man, project engineer like Bill. What is he seeing now? Is he seeing this thing come into place like he's expected it to happen?
He has been involved from day one in the sense of he is managing all of that, and there is a lot. If you think about it, we're closing one whole side, replacing all the concrete there. In Oakland County, we're only going to work at night during the week, but we're going to have weekend closures from 9 p.m. Friday night into 5 a.m. Monday morning, somewhere along this stretch.
Okay,
so through
basically
Oakland County,
from 275 all the way over.
275. Oops.
Yeah.
Where's my
It's
telegraph?
it's
Telegraph. Okay, I want telegraph.
Bullseye.
So
Good
this,
job.
we're gonna in Oakland break it up into 4 segments from 275 to Telly,
Okay.
and then let me pick another color here. Then from Telly out just past 75 at DeQuinder, which is really the county line, and then we're gonna do the same thing going westbound. So there's 4 segments, east and west, 2 stretches with telegraph being the separator.
Right.
When we go to close for a weekend, we will only close one of these 4.
And 10 weekends, I think, was the max.
10 weekends is the most.
So between basically what date and what date will those 10 weekends be?
Once we start.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Nice try, though, there, Dennis. Until we're done with the project.
Sure.
But we realize what a tremendous inconvenience this is going to be. But now during the nighttime work during the week, they can be kind of working everywhere.
Okay.
And this stretch here, anybody who knows Evergreen, Coolidge, we had unfortunately all those horrible incidences with concrete coming up. So this is in the worst shape more than this, which Bill fixed 2 years ago on 275. A lot of it here. We did a lot of patching. So this area doesn't need as much, but the 4 segments is what you want to remember, because once we close, if we close from here to here, and your event on the weekend is over here, you're going to be okay.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but the weekends, people are really going to have to pay attention to the J and our Michigan.gov/drive, our Twitter account, that we're going to let you know what the weekends are. But everything is weather dependent.
Right.
So we may be planning on a closure, but then Thursday, Friday looks like it's going to be too much rain.
Okay. Okay, so the input you had this past public meeting in Southfield, you're going to continue with the public input, ideas, questions, thoughts, this coming Wednesday where?
We have one more at the Warren's City Hall.
This
coming Wednesday the 11th,
Okay.
from 4:30 to
Well,
7:30.
okay.
I think maybe 7:30.
Yeah.
It's the same location. We've had a number of them. We've had a good half dozen public
That's
meetings.
on Van Dyke, right?
It is right on
Okay.
Van Dyke.
Okay.
It's right where the city, I think it's around 13 Mile.
Yeah.
Where they've got all their library and all that stuff is right there
Right,
together.
right.
And we've pretty much had the same kind of questions at every event. You know, when, why, what's it going to cost, why can't you wait? Same type of thing, why can't it be shared, what an inconvenience it is. It's going to be awful, but I would think anybody, especially those that were involved in those, having concrete come through your windshield,
Oh, yeah.
we know 696 has to be done. It just has to be, and it's worse in Macomb. So by closing again, only westbound, eastbound is always open, but the second half, July into the fall, you're only going to be able to get on at 75, and you can't get on again until the end of
Okay,
94.
big thing for a lot of folks is the alternate, and we already know what the alternate is. And KT, who does the midday traffic for us, and in the afternoon, wonderful traffic. In fact, middays in the afternoons, the afternoon drive. Listen to her all the time. She drove the alternate yesterday. She got on 94 to 75. That's the
Right.
alternate, right? Okay.
Because the reason
15
why-
minutes more.
15?
15 is what she
She
said.
took 11 miles.
So she took 11,
Then
but
she
the alternate.
did not take our
She
detour.
took
She took
696 service drive. Is what she
Yes.
did. Okay, she took the 696.
Okay,
service.
so
Thank
she
you,
did
KT,
the service
by the way.
drive, and that's where we're going to be working on adding
Thanks.
7 traffic signals and putting up signs on to help with a little bit of that. But the official detour, so anybody coming west on 94 and they normally get onto 696, instead we want you to stay west.
There you go.
You're going to go down into Detroit
Right.
on 94 west, onto 75. Boy, this is looking pretty bad now. Isn't it, on
It's
here?
all right, though. We're
Onto
following.
westbound.
Yeah.
That's the official
what do you
detour.
think this one?
We do not. Oh,
Have you driven?
well, I have driven it many times, but not that I paid attention to the time of day
What do you think?
or the
15,
distance.
20 minutes this way to 90, 94,
Think about it
75?
though. In the morning,
Yeah, well,
that
that's tough.
again, rush hour is going to be a lot tougher.
North 75 will be a little bit better than
Right,
94.
because you're going north in the morning versus
Right.
if you're going south, you have the
Yes.
heavier traffic.
Right.
I would think that a lot of folks, though, normally who live on this side of town, they all use 94 either to 96
Right.
or to 75. So you do have a lot of traffic still coming westbound in the morning. But again, depends on the time of day.
Are you
Depends on where
talking
you
to
get
business
on.
about flex time, or is anybody talking to you about? Are
Alan-
they talking to their businesses, their workers? Hey, we're going to vary the flex time. We're going to vary the start time and the end time of the day. Are you seeing that happening? Are they talking about things like that?
Alan and the other project engineers have gone to multiple businesses, especially up here like Van Dyke and Mound and all of that. What's the Army tank place?
Oh, yeah, yes, I know what you're talking,
and
Tank Command.
the automotive companies
yeah.
and the hospitals
Yeah.
in the area. I believe there's some delivery services, the idea of letting them know. Because
So they're
again,
already planning for it. Then,
well,
which is
we're
good.
doing our best to help them
Yeah.
get the
I
information.
wonder how much
to do the planning.
telecommuting will go on too. A lot of folks maybe, who knows, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen from this. And so we'll hear the ideas too. Maybe somebody has any ideas.
Well, we also kind of
you
know it from 75
Yeah.
southbound. I mean,
Right.
closing the whole direction. I think it's
Right.
a little bit similar to
You want to
that.
bring Bill in now? Should we do that?
Let's
Why don't
do
we
that.
Why don't we
He
do it?
knows
Good.
a lot more.
Bill Urban, thanks
Hey,
very
Dennis.
much for joining us. Stay
Nice
with
to
us,
see you.
Diane.
I will.
Slide
I'm
over
gonna hand
here.
you back your marker now.
I'll take the marker. Bill Urban is the project engineer for the I-75 project between Springwells and the Telegraph Connector, if I'm correct.
About 11
right?
miles
how,
long,
How
right.
many communities are affected by this Bill?
Dennis, the first question you asked me,
Yeah.
a lot of them.
Yeah,
All
okay.
the downriver
Let
communities.
me see if I get somebody. There's a picture of why you're doing it
Yeah,
here.
this is the
We'll come back.
Goddard
In
Bridge.
fact, I can erase all of this scratch marks on here.
Oh, that was my best.
Yes,
best
you did a
part.
good job on this, Diane. Thank you very much for doing that, by the way. But this is one of the reasons why we're going to talk about some of the added projects that you've come up with to work with along I-75. We'll go back to that other picture here, for just a second here. Go back to this map here that we have here, and then we can bring this up, and you can then show us the stretch of I-75 that's affected by that.
This is the southern end where Telegraph comes into I-75, and the northern end, here's the Rouge River Bridge, the big
Get rid of this real quick.
1.6 mile long bridge
Let go of your fingers so you can.
in downtown Detroit.
Go ahead.
And Spring Wells is where it starts. So there's actually a 2-mile road job going on north of us,
Okay.
but we are working on the bridges. That's perfect.
There, yeah, that is. That
So
is nice.
the Rouge Bridge.
There's Dearborn Street right there.
Yeah, so we've got a bridge over Fort Street, we have a bridge over Dearborn Street, and there are 2 ramp bridges that connect to Dearborn Street.
Okay.
And then we come to the south. We're going to do some road work in here as long as we have the freeway closed. And then we come down to Goddard. There were actually 2 long bridges that are made into 4 shorter bridges right there. There's a little creek you can see right there, and so there's 4 more bridges there. And then we work on North Line, and we work on Allen, and there's a railroad south of Allen, and then we work on Eureka, and we work on this ramp bridge that comes into the connector from 75, and then we work on the 2 bridges that carry I-75 over the Blakely Drain, which is right south of Pennsylvania.
Okay. To these other bridges that are in need. Did you find this out when you were looking at I-75? You do frequent inspections. Is that what you found, that this was necessary to do? Was that the added project that you've added to because of that?
Yeah, I think the fact that they weren't all led at the same time also has to do with money, right? So the I-75 project came through, huge amount of money, the biggest bridge in the state as far as square yards of concrete. It's 1.6 miles long, and it's monstrous. So that took our big bridge fund money. And then while we were looking at that, it said, well, why, as long as we have the freeway closed, why don't we do these rehabilitation of 11 bridges south of Goddard and north of the connector? So it was no more impact to traffic because southbound had been detoured for the full 2 years. So it was a way of just sort of sneaking in and doing another $22 million worth of work.
Sure. Okay, so I want to first mention that Alan Brown, thank you for listening. Joe Locke says these roads are horrible. People need to be held responsible. You probably heard these. Steve Urban. This will be a huge mess. I don't know if there's any relation at all. Let's see. Well, Mark Willis, I'm sorry. Let's hope it's not a real hot summer. You know what I mean. And Chris Betsky, that traffic is going to be a mess. And I see dollar signs from one of the other listeners here as well. So there are people, and I'm not going to refer to them necessarily as skeptical people, but everybody's saying, "Doggone, the roads are a mess. What's going on here?" You know. So I hear and feel their reactions to what's going on, and I know you guys have heard this a million times, Diane. I know Bill, you have as well. But yeah, I know. So, how do you handle these kind of comments?
Well, the first thing I say is our cars are damaged too, so nobody likes rough roads, and so I can't pound my chest and say you're wrong and I'm right because rough roads are rough roads.
Yep.
I will say that we have heavy trucks and the freeze-thaw cycles, you know, the cooling and the heating, the cooling and the heating do a lot of damage, and the salt does a lot of damage.
Sure.
That being said, we don't like to just throw our hands up and say rough roads are what we're going to live with. So money has a lot to do with it. We go after whatever we can go after, which is evidenced by this corridor. We had the big Rouge Bridge project, and then we said, well, let's try to squeeze $22 million to do the 11 bridges south of there. So it's just expensive. There are a lot of needs.
Well, and I got a kick out of when you showed us here. I think we were at Goddard when we were on the bridge up there a couple months ago. There's also a creek in there, and I didn't get a chance to put it on the air the last time we were talking about it, but it turns out that creek is also a nesting area for salmon. So you had to actually consider this whole process, and that creek had to be maintained so these fish could reproduce, could do what they needed to do, so we would have the salmon population be what it was. But it's also for a lot of other wildlife as well.
Yeah,
so,
the work period when they were in the drain had to be, you had to do the work before and after essentially the spawning season for fish.
Oh my gosh, I got a real kick out of that.
April into June, right. So it's that kind of sensitivity to the environment that is ingrained in these projects. So, you know, there is quite a bit going on, but there are still sensitivities to things like that.
Now, I've been watching on the AAA jam cams that we have, watching the project, the I-75. How are things going on the Big Rouge River Bridge? It looks pretty impressive, the work that you're doing. It looks like you're doing some work prepping for the eventual paving of that bridge. Is that what I'm seeing?
Well, remember, we finished the southbound side, and traffic has shifted over to the southbound side. So you've got brand new concrete, top of the line, best materials available on the southbound side. We're pulling off the old concrete, which wasn't top of the line concrete, but probably back then it was the best they had. So we're peeling that off the northbound side, and then we'll repair whatever seal repairs need to be done, and then we're going to place new concrete down. So,
Do you see any damage to that bridge on this northbound side when you're repairing it now? Have you seen anything that was unusual that you didn't expect to see that you can even share with us?
Well, there's nothing catastrophic. Just there's rust. I mean, some of the top flanges are a half-inch thick, which the I-beam has a top flange and a lower flange, and so we put an extra plate on there. We thickened it up, so we fortified the strength and strengthened the bridge prior to putting the new concrete down. So the things that you would just expect, some things are hidden underneath the concrete that the original bridge inspector couldn't see. So, but things are going well, and it'll be better than it has ever been when we get done.
Yeah. Thanks, Murray. Murray Feldman, thank you so much. A nice, great explanation, he said. I appreciate your explanation as to what's going on. And Alan Brown says, afraid my new Corvette to take his new Corvette out on the roads, which we talked about how rough they are. I'm assuming there are a lot of people who are concerned about those cars, the classic cars, for the cruises that we have all summer long. We have them downriver, we have them along Gratiot, we have them along Woodward Avenue as well. Don't forget, please share. Thank you for the comments. We sure, and Murray, we sure appreciate you doing that as well. Very kind of you.
You know, we can't though. You can't have it both ways.
No,
you can't have. We have really bad roads and they're rough. Oh well, Bill said we're not going to live with that. But then we have to close lanes and freeways to fix it. It's either we close the road to fix it or we close the road.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be safe to drive on.
Yeah.
And so the folks that don't like it, the closure, which us either, all of us have to find detours for those same closures, and whether it's southbound 75 or westbound 696. Plus, even if this doesn't affect you, drivers need to realize they're still going to see heavier traffic on their roads because all 50, 75,000 drivers who use westbound 696, they have to go somewhere. And we know very few are going to take that long 94 to 75 route.
Yeah.
So we've also been talking with the local communities that they're going to see more traffic on Sterling Heights mile roads, on Warren's mile roads, because everybody has to go somewhere.
Well, that's the wear and tear on the roads I see, but there are some businesses along there that I guess indirectly benefit. I don't know
The fact that more
much about
eyes might
that.
see their business that they didn't know it was there.
Yeah, restaurants, gas stations, party stores, things like that may have not benefited from some of these folks that may be now driving. Now, this is my rose-colored glasses way of looking at things. Everybody around here says I wear rose-colored glasses, but I'm trying to think of what's the alternative to all of this. These have to be rebuilt. You know, so what would you do? What could we do differently?
Well,
do different materials, different contractors. What else could we do, Bill?
I mean, the reconstructions are completely
Step right over here, right next to
the reconstructions are
Diane.
much more involved than a resurfacing. We had a resurfacing job in Canton that we did only at night, but it was only 1.5 inches of asphalt. But people would wake up in the morning and have a new section of road, at least road surface.
Sure.
But that's not digging out and completely replacing all the materials as we're doing here.
Asphalt doesn't last as long as concrete, I'm assuming.
Well,
right?
it serves a different function, right? It's a surfacing material, but the asphalt industry does have full depth sections of pavement.
That wasn't taking a slap at
Yeah.
asphalt. I can see where you on that 96 project. Diane is familiar
That
with
was
this.
all Bill's.
Yeah, and you did one side asphalt, right, and the other side concrete.
Yeah,
Because you wanted. So what are you seeing with that project? That's the Detroit 96,
Right.
which you did a great job of rebuilding. I want to say I love driving on it. But one side's asphalt, one side's concrete. Why? What's the difference?
Well,
Why did you do that?
I think those are the two industries trying to say that yes, we can build a full depth pavement and it can hold up to freeway traffic.
Has it held up well?
Well, I think the verdict's still out. I think it's still being studied. I didn't work on that project, but I know people are still looking at it because I've asked the same question.
Sure.
Yeah, is there a winner here yet? And I don't know if they've fully determined that at this point. They need to maybe take pavement cores and take a little deeper look at what's going on.
Now, I've asked you all, I think I've asked you this before on some of the other bridge projects. I know there's a small bridge called Bridge Road in Southfield off of 8 Mile west of Telegraph Road.
Right.
And this was built years ago. That wonderful professor from the Lawrence Technological University, I forget his name, he's a wonderful man.
Grace, Dr. Grace.
He started that. This has now been in place for 20, 25 years. It's composite material, which means this ain't rusty. You know what I mean? What's the verdict on that? I mean, you're going to have, how long are you going to wait to decide whether or not you're going to use composite materials that won't rust, that maybe can handle the expansion and contraction of the soil in these thaw-free cycles? What do you think, Bill?
Well, I think we're moving into that. In fact, on this project, the Rouge project, this bridge over the drain that you mentioned has that. Instead of steel reinforcement, it has carbon fiber reinforcement.
Wow.
So we're moving to
neat
that.
to know.
There were monitors put in place to keep track of it. So I don't think we're jumping in feet first, but we are actually, it's right there. So the southbound.
Okay, right, circle right here.
The southbound side has a new bridge that has carbon fiber instead of steel reinforcement, so it'll never rust.
So you'll check that, you'll watch that over the years, or the next project
Right.
engineer will continue to watch that to see how it handles the thaw-free cycle. Excuse me, has that bridge, have you talked to the professor from LTU, has that bridge handled things pretty well in the bridge road there? It doesn't handle much traffic, let's face it.
No,
it's in and out of an industrial park, I think, isn't it? Yeah, and it goes over the branch
Right.
of the Rouge River, so it's not heavily traveled. What's the thoughts so far on this? Is it working out?
I have not seen the reports. I think Lawrence Check was involved with that because
Right.
he's a professor.
Right.
He was involved in this project.
Oh, was he? Good.
So we're still working with Dr. Grace, and I'm not sure about the status of his reporting on
Right,
on the bridge you mentioned.
Puts
But
you on the spot. We could ask
Well,
him to be here. He's a wonderful man. So, yeah.
It's a promise,
Right.
And there are cost-effective elements that need to be looked
Is it
at
going to
as
be
well.
more costly than steel to put a composite in?
It all depends on if it lasts longer, then it could. So I don't think we know the answer yet. I think it's more expensive initially to go in, but it provides longer-term performance, then it could be more cost-effective in the long run.
Okay, no, let me ask you this. We're going to bring Diane in here as well. You can answer this if you guys know. Down to the south, I-75 is pretty rough. Down
In
south of
Monroe.
I-275 in Monroe. Can you look to the future? Can you tell us anything that's going on that you're familiar with that's going to happen on I-75 this year farther south? Because a lot of folks, obviously, Cedar Point's huge. Going south, going to
All
the
the
East
truck
Coast,
traffic.
all the truck traffic, and it's getting beat up. When I look at the AAA jam cams, my goodness, all the traffic on that road. You could look between the trucks and see cars, but it's 80% trucks on that stretch of road. And obviously they're going to get eventually here to the Gordie Howe International Bridge, part of the 75 project there. I can see that, but that road's pretty beat up. Any thoughts on anything going on in this year or in the next couple of years on I-75 farther south?
Yeah, you talking about in Monroe County?
In Monroe County.
Yeah, do you know, because I know that's handled out of our university region.
Right.
Yeah.
I had heard that it was about a 20-year project.
Okay.
From the state line up toward 275. I don't know exactly where that falls, but that
makes sense.
It is in such bad shape that there's such major work that needs to be done. But I admit I don't know the details or which lanes or which sections of it. But I do know in some ways it's like our 75 modernization in Oakland County, that it was going to be a 20-year project. But again, I'm just speaking off of what I recall. But I could probably find somebody. In fact, I know I've been working with you to
Rob
find
Velasquez,
somebody
he keeps
talk about that.
keeps calling. We say, man, we got to get these folks in here to talk about these
Yes,
projects.
I'm working on
Everybody.
finding somebody who can go into
Thanks,
a little bit
Rob.
more detail with you.
20-year project?
Yeah.
I believe that is what I heard, but again, I can't be the source of that, and I'm not saying that's the entire stretch, but I had heard that they've got a plan for 20 years on 75. Now, if that includes maintenance or different sections, I don't know. That's just what I had heard.
I don't think she means it's one project.
Yeah, I don't mean the whole.
Years.
It's been
No.
It says that they budgeted to do work there over
Right.
20 years.
over 20 years. Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Joe,
that is
Joe,
much
Joe
clearer.
Locke, these roads are horrible. People need to be held responsible. Alan Brown always listens. $. Thanks for the video from Bill Axtell. Danny Shamrock Coughlin, thank you. Why is it better for other states? Why is it better in other states? Why is it better in Ohio? Is it a money thing? Is it a thaw-free cycle? We get to that question. Winston, it's going to be a tough drive having to use I-94 instead of I-696. Do laws need to change to make sure the roads are better? All these things you guys probably handle that I sure can't answer. But these are very good questions, and we thank you for sharing your thoughts and share these ideas. Continue to do so. We can, I know Bill can't, or if Diane can't answer the questions, I know they'll get back with us and let us know. So all these questions there.
Yeah, I mean, they're tough questions. I can speak as an engineer that the materials going in the concrete are much better now than they were back then. And
That's just from research that
through
you've
research, and we have a research arm in Lansing, and I've seen the old concrete, and we've cored the old concrete. We've taken a look at the porosity, the holes in the rock, and now we look at it, and it's much denser, and we require much analysis to make sure the sand doesn't react to the cement and have this alkali silica reaction and prematurely fall apart.
So we heard things like, can you use old shredded tires? I mean, can we recycle plastic bags? I've heard lots of ideas floated, Bill. I mean, how far are these down the line from even being possible?
Well, some of that, now you talk about a rubber product, you talk
Yes.
about asphalt, right?
Yeah.
So there is a certain amount of recycled asphalt product, rubber tires, et cetera, that's allowed in asphalt. So that's MDOT's attempt, right, to not just throw everything away, to reuse products. So we do have an initiative to try to be environmentally sensitive and not always have brand new materials in our pavements. But the concrete out here is highly engineered.
Are you mixing the old concrete that you're going to rip up? Are you mixing this old concrete with new concrete, or is that a misconception that
No,
you do that?
No longer. We learned our lesson with that. You cannot grind up the old concrete and put it in the new concrete and have a good product. You can grind it up into stone, use it as an aggregate base below that concrete, but you can't put the old concrete, because it still has some cement particles on it. You can't put that in the new concrete and have any success with that. We learned our lesson.
How about weight of the trucks, Diane? Maybe you want to jump in here. People ask you that too. The trucks are too heavy, or we're allowing them to ride on our roads and carry too much freight. Well, the trucking industry has bounced back on that and said, well, wait a minute, no, we're paying our taxes and we're doing the job. What are your thoughts? Are we riding too heavy vehicles on our roads for what we're dealing with, pavement-wise, or not? Or am I putting you on the spot by asking you that question, Bill?
Well, you are, but I mean, we have a job to build roads that our customers can handle too, right?
Right.
So I do know that with the auto industry, So I don't want to shirk the responsibility.
And I know a lot of truck drivers. They're wonderful men and women, wonderful, hardworking men and women, and there's a lot of bang for the buck that they put in these trucks. So maybe the roads are getting eaten up, but it may be a lot of other reasons, as you mentioned. Our thought recycle, as we've talked about.
If I can add this, though, I've been told in Michigan, and this isn't my area of expertise, but that we require more axles per weight. Is it?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Versus
the weight over the axles.
And they're paying quite a tax on their diesel fuel, I think, too, aren't they? Are they paying what, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe somebody who's driving maybe could let us know, and maybe I can read that here, maybe they could tell us.
But on top of that, when people refer to Ohio, remember, Ohio spends $1 billion, with a B, dollars more per year on the roads.
Yeah.
Bowling balls and apples comparison. If we had that kind of money, what a difference it would make.
Are we going back to that age-old question that it's just not enough money? Is that the bottom line here?
That's a huge issue. I mean, we have $175 million worth of work going on. We're doing 19 bridges, 11 miles. We're fixing the pavement the best we can, but it's predominantly a bridge job.
Yeah.
So we're particularly on the southbound, people are detoured. We've gone out, we've patched the pavement, but we're not replacing all the road. We're predominantly working on bridges that needed work.
Yeah.
We're doing our best job that we can with the available money that we have, and I was given another $500,000 to do some additional road work, but we're not completely rebuilding the road. It's $175 million for 19 bridges.
Well, I thank you for coming in and taking the heat for a lot of the questions that you're going to get. These projects obviously affect a lot of people. Same thing with you, Diane. You answer the calls in the morning. Anything that you both want to add to what we've talked about? The 696 project, of course, the upcoming public meeting coming up next Wednesday in Warren from 4:30 until 7:30 at the Warren City Hall Chambers. But what other comments or questions that you both have about your project? 696 and then maybe I-75.
I'd actually like to add one thing that came up about a week and a half ago. We had a bridge hit on Warren over I-75.
Yes.
And we had 75 down to one lane for about 12 hours, and then we closed 75 at 94. Affected thousands of drivers during the morning drive time. In fact, it went most of the day. But this was about a week after that Florida bridge issue. And we had people come back and tell us, in fact, one particular lady who has really been inconvenienced with the 75 South closure come back and say, I apologize for all the complaining, take as long as you need to make it safe. And people need to realize that is the viewpoint that our construction engineers, our designers, everybody goes through. Not only to be, get the best bang for the dollar that we spend, that we get the most for our taxpayers, because we're all taxpayers too, but that the safety of drivers who are going to be underneath these bridges, going to be on these roads, that's always our primary.
Well, you've been a traffic reporter, so you understand this. And Rob and Laura, we in the morning, we're constantly looking at the AAA jam cams, and when there is a closure, we're getting the word out. I know how many TV stations are, all the other radio stations. There are still people driving down the roads or on those, or trying to get onto those ramps. So I don't know how you get the word out any more than you're even trying. And the changeable message sign, which of course this morning was saying something that was completely crazy.
It
wrong
said that
way
there was a
driver.
wrong way driver. But think
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
though. In fact, I had some Twitter complaints about that. Would you not rather see warning wrong way driver and
Well-
have one not be there, or have one be there, headlights coming toward you, and you had no warning?
Well, sure.
So yes, it was inconvenient and kind of scary, but it wasn't based on fact. But sometimes it is based on fact. We do have to use those signs a lot for wrong way drivers.
I think the only umbrage maybe we took with it is that we wish you just had a little switch.
Yeah,
you could
we
lean
did
over
too.
there and flip the switch
We
and
did
say,
too.
get that sign off there and say, and go blank. But you couldn't.
We tried.
do that.
We tried all the computer systems that through MDOT, through the servers that feed the traffic to the lines. I have to admit, I don't know how a lot of
traffic
that.
tipsters we're calling right there, as a matter of fact. 248-4236 WDWJ.
It was tough
Thank
this
you.
morning, but fortunately it was just the situation. There was no real incident of somebody, because we have those almost every night where state police will get a call that says somebody's driving the wrong way on 96 or 94 or
There are
whatever.
a variety of reasons, whether they've been drinking, drugs, whether a lot of times it's somebody who's older who
Yep,
or has
couldn't see.
mental capacities diminished, that they don't know, they can't see, you can't see that. Now, we found out that you guys are changing the signages too, so things will improve, so maybe somebody can see that they're going to go on the wrong freeway because the line of sight's better. They can actually see that the sign says this is the direction you're on.
And people, again, don't think about the goal of how much energy we put to try to make the road safer. Even when we replace signs, and people say, what are you doing that? The sign's fine. But they don't realize at night the reflectivity of the paint is gone. So you can't see it in fog or snow or whatever. And we want to make the roads as safe as we can. And you got to spend some money on that. You got to spend some time and some research. So we do study that kind of stuff, and then try to do things like use the message boards to get the word out, working with state police to try to help. And again, though, if people keep both eyes through the windshield, both hands on the wheel, they're going to be safer no matter what. But if they're not paying any attention, they're looking at their phone, that's so dangerous for so many reasons. But if you also then have headlights suddenly coming toward you, again, there's so many things unsafe.
Good explanation. Appreciate you doing that. Okay, Bill, any last words? What do you think? What's your thoughts?
Well, if I could change directions just a little bit, I'd like to put in a pitch for next week is Work Zone Awareness Week.
Yes.
And I would like people to think that those who are working behind the barrels are your neighbors, your friends, your family, because they are. And so if folks can slow down, we've had a number of truck accidents in the I-75 Rouge project, and the trucks have completely smashed through the wall right next to the workers.
Wow.
And so I really appeal to everyone to just be mindful
Upon
of
the
that.
investigation, I don't mean to interrupt, Bill, when you talk to these truck drivers, if they're willing to give up the reason why they did that, what is the reason why? Are they distracted? Are they tired? Is it just they got cut off? A lot of them get cut off. Us car drivers don't like like truck drivers. They just cut these guys off. I couldn't believe it. I've driven with a friend of mine in a truck before, big fuel hauler, and people were cutting us off. I thought, what is this all about?
Yeah, I guess
There could be a number of reasons why.
I
Right?
didn't get into it on that level. Some of my staff talked to one of the truck drivers, and basically there was a lot of turbulence going on at the time. But basically, he smacked through the wall, and the trucks are so heavy, it completely broke the wall. So now we have to pay to fix the wall.
Sure.
So, but there are people working. More importantly, there are people working behind the barrels and behind the walls, and so.
What's the posted speed in the construction zones, Bill?
Well,
Is
it depends on what
varied?
zones. We've got 60 on the Rouge, but because we have the concrete barrier there, but 45 is your standard construction.
When there are
zone.
barrels, when there are loose barrels that can be knocked over. So 45 there, or slower. And frankly, the ticket for going too fast in a construction zone.
Right.
Plus, if somebody gets killed, it's bad news. Isn't it?
But it's just more the thought of they're normal people. Everyone's just trying to do a good job. They're working hard. They got families. And if you could just slow down, we all would appreciate it.
Can I add to Bill's comment that with next week being Work Zone Awareness Week, on Monday, MDOT and state police and some other organizations are having a press conference to talk about, again, reminding people about these folks are working next to live traffic, speeding traffic, distracted traffic with plastic barrels and illuminated vests. So to help raise awareness, we're also asking that people next Wednesday, the 11th, to wear orange. It's National Wear Orange Day. And I'm actually going to be reaching out on Monday to all the media, you folks as well, to get people to wear orange, to create awareness, to talk about it, to remind people, you want to get home, they want to get home, everyone home every night, on how important it is to pay attention to that.
Very, very good advice. Okay, before we go here, Andrew Johnson, South 75, is it on schedule?
Yes, it is. In fact, it's doing well.
Okay, very good. Mary Sands-Cartier, thank you for calling Rick Demko. Thanks very much. We already talked about the toll roads. Make toll roads. Everybody keeps suggesting the toll roads, which that may be a possibility.
That's their legislature. Talk to their legislators.
Okay, talk to the legislator. Good point.
About funding as well.
Funding would help too. Vera Federic, thanks. Good morning to you as well. We thank you for watching, listening. Share this information, any other information that you might have. Get it to us. We'll probably pass it along to Diane Cross and also to Bill Urban. Bill Urban's the 75 project engineer and manager. And Diane Cross, as you've heard many times, step forward to the camera, to the microphone to explain the situation. And the latest that we have, that we can tell you right now, is we don't know when West 696 is going to close between I-94 and I-75. And the latest they can glean from this, it would be the earliest would probably be sometime in early May. Is that what, am I gathering that correct?
It can't be any earlier than the end of April.
Okay.
So it's not going to be the next couple weeks.
It's a contractor-based thing, right?
And that they can't start any earlier than April 30th is the last day of the month. So odds are, because there's only one day in April, that chances are it's going to be early May. But I really Jay will be the first to hear about it, and then again reaching out to all the media.
Well, I think I will as a traffic reporter, and a lot of folks are going to be coming back from Easter break this coming Monday. I'm going to try to say to folks as much as possible, keep reminding them this is going to happen, to start thinking about alternatives.
Right. So the next
now.
Week or two, try a different route. Try one of the mile roads,
right.
And again, all the media is out here, all of the 696, almost all of it. So all of you folks who work nights, early hours, weekends, you're going to be affected as well.
I wonder how many people are going to want to share that because they don't want to give up their alternate route.
I've had people tell me that, like, oh darn, that was my
backup.
backup, and now people are going to be on it.
Okay, timetable for I-75 one more time. Now, when do you think this stretch is going to be open? All these bridges that you're working on done. Any guesstimate, so to speak?
October is the completion date, right?
Okay.
But I think the contractor's doing a bit better than that.
Okay, so is there incentive on this project?
Yes,
there's incentive on the 696 project as well, or not?
I believe there is, but again, this 696 project really should be a 2-year project. So everything is planned so tight, it's going to be tough to get any extra early hours, but there is an incentive. But Alan says it's probably not going to be able to be used because they got a lot to get done.
Well, this is the reason why, right here. In fact,
This is
Rob
75.
Velasic was showing us this. Thank you very much, Rob. Very much. Producer of the Facebook Live. We sure appreciate all of your work. Thank you, Rob. There's one of the reasons why, and there's another reason. This is one of the overpasses. I think you're in the process or going to be rebuilding this year. Is this Goddard
that's
Road
Goddard.
right here? Is that Goddard? Okay, thank you very much. So this is Goddard Road. This is going to be rebuilt. That gives you an idea what you're dealing with. Look at the crumbling along here as well. So thank you very much for looking in on Facebook Live. Thank you, Bill Urban.
Sure, Dennis.
Come on over, stand over here. Come on and get this beautiful woman in here, this wonderful, great
Always a pleasure,
spokesperson,
Dennis.
Diane Cross, in here as well, from the Michigan Department of Transportation. We thank you immensely for your calls at 248-4236-WWJ. Watching us on Facebook Live. There's a new there's a new website that you can go to for us now. George, repeat that for me. That's
wwjnewsradio.com.
That's it, wwjnewsradio.com. I want to make sure I got that right. I've been going to it as much as I can as well. Just follow us. If you have any ideas, any thoughts, any suggestions, but better yet, share the information so we can get the word out. So make sure that everybody is planning for this upcoming closure of 696 and continuing to use I-75 downriver through this great city, which is obviously experiencing lots of changes in our infrastructure, and maybe that'll be something that'll be part of the politics this coming year. We'll see. We'll kind of keep watching. So Bill Urban, Diane Cross, thank you very much. We sure appreciate it. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. Stay safe. Look for us on WWJ at News Radio 950, of course, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 24-hour traffic center. And call us if you ever have a traffic tip, any ideas, any thoughts, 248-4236-WWJ. So many people have gotten on here. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody else on here that has been watching. I think I got everybody on here. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time on Facebook Live. Y'all have a great weekend. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Bill, very much for your time. Sure appreciate it. Take care.